I'm really good at coming up with new ideas. And that process, it's stimulating. It's like a new world. The problem is that there's so much meaning in it for me, which is great for songwriting. But when it bleeds over into your life and your life looks like an incomplete song, it's like, you know that you're capable of more.
ADHD Rewired, episode 75. This is the show designed to help those of us who have really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. My name is Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, coach, and consultant. We know that starting can be the hardest part, so let's get started. But first, let me thank our sponsors. This podcast is brought to you by ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Groups. To find out about the next ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Group, go to coachingrewired.com. That's coachingrewired.com. Welcome, Adam Muller, to ADHD Rewired. Let me tell you a little bit about Adam. He is passionate about human relationships, the understanding why people do what they do and how they relate with one another. He and his wife, Melissa, created ADHD Collective, a strengths-based ADHD coaching business in Southern California. They provide ADHD coaching for adults, professionals, and college students with ADHD in the greater Los Angeles area. Adam's experience, from working in corporate wireless industry to writing music in Nashville, Tennessee, has deepened his value for human diversity and complexity. Adam, welcome to ADHD Rewired.
Thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing awesome. You know, I love the idea of outsourcing because with the one word, which, you know what? I'm giving a direct instruction right now to my editor, Richard. Leave that retake in so people know what I'm talking about. So if I wanted to, because I messed up on a word, since you've now heard it, I can just say retake, and I've delegated that task. So it's like, in 1 second, I fix a mistake instead of saying, oh man, I got to start all over again. And so let's just start there with being vulnerable, because I think that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Yes. I like it.
So you've contacted me, I think it was back in January. You have a podcast called Mullercast. And you were looking for an interview, to gain exposure. And it's something that we all do as podcasters. We reach out to other podcasters trying to offer value to each other's audiences. Right. And in our conversation, you were kind of selling me a pitch on your coaching practice, and I
totally embarrassingly so. No, I was actually trying to, and you stopped me and said, let me help you. I hear it. And then you kind of pushed me over and said, I hear you're maybe want to have an interview. Yes.
So, and then we got talking about vulnerability and sharing, being that we are both in the field of helping people with ADHD. Right. And we are both people living with ADHD.
Exactly right.
Now that part, I think it was making you a little uncomfortable.
It was.
And just so you all know, his face is turning totally red right now.
Right. It was. It was interesting. I liked the idea of, this is what you do, businesses helping each other out, all this stuff, and then bringing it up. And I was telling a little bit about my story to you, and you kind of paused and said, well, I think we should talk about this. And that's when it all kind of came flooding in. And I was like, wow, why do I feel really unsure about that, or really uncomfortable?
And so if I recall, you seemed kind of excited and scared at the same time. And you said you wanted to talk to your wife. about
Right.
it, right?
Right.
Which is always a smart move.
Right.
When I share some of the more personal stuff on the podcast, I do
Yeah.
run it by my wife because it's
No, it's a good idea.
yeah. Even though she's still only on episode 15, she's so far behind. So let's talk about those stories that you shared with me that I felt will be a great story to share with ADHD Rewired.
Well, yeah, no, I think I think even the story of our conversation is a good place to start. And but the reason why I thought it was important was directly what was happening in the moment for myself, and
which is what,
which was this feeling of uncomfortability with others. It's like I have my ADHD. It's mine. I can control it. I have my translations of what that means for me. And I don't want that in the hands or in the minds of other people where I can't control the way I'm perceived. And that kind of gets to the guts of it. And, but that's how I felt. And so I was like, wow, here I am handing over this control, or the possibility of handing over this control of what it means to others, and letting them have a handle on it. There's just an uncomfortability. Everybody kind of has that feeling of like, I wonder what they're thinking about me in their heads. So it was like that, but my blood was going in a sense, because I thought, you really hit on something here. And I think that this is if I'm experiencing this, and I mean, those who are listening who have ADHD they must be experiencing this too. And I think it would be a good thing it's sort of like, this is a just thing to talk about. Like,
yeah, it's because I know that there are a lot of coaches and clinicians who do listen to this podcast. And I know that, almost similar in, I think, a lot of ways to, you look at a lot of people who are recovering addicts who become addiction counselors. I think there's a lot of people who are professionally in the field of ADHD who also have ADHD. And I think that there are many of those people who struggle with, how much do I share? What do I share? Should I share that I have ADHD, or do I pretend to be normal and have it all together and just have this really good understanding of what you're going through, even though I'm going through it too?
Right. No, I think that I feel even that now. It's like even coaching clients is like, I know all the right answers, but it's, and so I can be very helpful. And I've been through it myself, but like, there is a piece of me that, it's like, my own journey, all of our journeys are kind of on these different, there's like the start and the go, the staccato. Hey, I got a win here and I got a loss here. And, helping those with ADHD when you don't have it all together, or say you had a loss week or you had an off week, and, there's that feeling of vulnerability. It's like, how can I say these things or have these answers when I myself am struggling this week, or whatever it may be. I think
you want to hear what I did this week. I love sharing my ADHD moments, because it's like, oh man.
Okay. Yes.
So, I'm pretty, almost obsessive about looking at my calendar, like throughout the entire day. I always have my planning book open. I will write what's on, because I use an online calendar, but then I will write in my planning notebook what my appointments for the day is. So it's sort of duplicated, but that also helps me with processing, and it's always right in front of me.
Right.
So yesterday I'm working on something on my computer, and then there's a knock on my office door.
Oh no.
And it's a client, and he says, we're here for our 5 o'clock. And I said, oh, we're at 5:30. And so I said, and it was like 5:10 or something. I'm like, I'll be with you in like 5 minutes. So I go back and I'm going to continue working on what I'm doing. And then I learned to listen to that thought. I'm like, let me double check. Right. I was wrong.
Oh man.
He was right. And I was looking at my calendar all day long. There was probably a half an hour period where I just kind of like got, and my brain was thinking this was at 5:30 because this was a client that I actually see twice, and like the appointment that's tomorrow, the following day is. It was like, yeah, that's what I do, and and when I do that, I share exactly like, man, I take ownership of it.
Yeah.
I describe the experience. I also think that's a helpful. It's helpful for people to put into words, because it's not that I didn't care. It's not that
Right.
I don't care about the person's time that was sitting there. Like, I am explaining my brain hiccup, and that's
Right.
what it is, and it's helpful.
It totally is. You could take, this is right out of my playbook as well. I did this same thing last week of deleting all these things on the computer. Where I was like, I didn't make that small voice. It was like, I should check. I didn't check, and I hit delete, and I was like, crap, because it was the wrong thing. And I totally did that. But I remember even, do you know your episode? I think it's ADHD 55 miles an hour.
Yes. Still probably the most talked about episode.
Well, I think that's really interesting because what I really appreciate about the conversation that you're starting or that you're having with your podcast is sort of taking these moments that we all want to tuck underneath the rug, and they're a little bit embarrassing, and for whatever reason, you found the courage to just be, and that's an episode of a testament to that. So you read that, it's like it's happening in the moment, and it's unraveling. It makes someone feel known, I'll say, when you listen to that. So bravo to you, and for having the courage to do so.
We know what you were going to say, and I gotta, and okay, so I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I have brought up the, in response to that episode, I had a listener, and I think I brought this up a couple of times because it was like the best email I've gotten since I've started the podcast. Huh. I had a listener that contacted me telling me that they were starting to doubt that I had ADHD because they seem so together. And I was like wishing that I could remember who it was. And wow. I talked to her this week. So I was really? I had a conversation with her, and she's like, that listener that you referred to on the episode that talked about the, having you were wondering if I actually had ADHD. She's like, that was me. I was like, oh my gosh. So that was, yeah.
Oh, I like that.
But, because I think why to me that still like resonated so strongly for me is because it validated how hard I work at this. And, and I want to make sure that, so I just hit 150,000 downloads for the podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
At the time of recording this, there's 72 episodes out. Your episode will be somewhere in the mid 70s when this is released. But what I'm more like just proud of is that I haven't missed a week. And I look back at that. And I'm like,
I thought that on your behalf is like, I'm because I know what it's like to do a podcast and to have it line up, all of the details that go into that. And I was wondering the same thing. I was like, holy crap, he really hasn't. There's no week here that's not accounted for. Like, bravo and good job.
And that being said, I have had friends like Tom Nardone, who has bailed me out at the last minute because I didn't have anyone to interview. I think more than once. Right. So it's good that I have friends that, that they're online and get the podcasting thing that I can call upon really quickly. But, but I'm trying to kind of get myself, I'm actually finally starting to do like not an editorial calendar, but like get things more scheduled and further out. And, so yeah, I mean, it's a process though, but you know what? I think what it is that what we're doing right now, this is play to me. I love this. Like having these conversations and then getting the feedback later on, hearing that, someone that I interviewed, their story, really connected with the listener. So with that, I'm going to stop talking because I want to hear more of your story.
No, go for it. Well, I don't, with ADHD or is that?
So tell us when, you discovered that you had ADHD.
Tell us that story. in 2010. Um, my wife and I got married. My wife is Melissa, and so we got married in 2007. And a year later, we made a decision to move to Nashville, and it was a sort of our compromise of she wanted to get a graduate degree, and I always I've written music since I was 18 years old, and kind of have a history of that with that started out in the church. Um, and so I've been writing music, and I always wanted to do it or see if I could do it for a living. So it was sort of our compromise to move to Nashville. It's like, okay, I'm going to go see about the music thing and see if I can do that for a living. And, Melissa will go get her degree, and she was going to Vanderbilt University. So that was our like compromise. And I had a huge going to Nashville. It was a huge awakening of like, okay, what this dream I've been going after, and was struggling really intensely with making that happen, with fears and just debilitating fears with that.
What were
And
some of your biggest fears?
With music, I had it's something I've always been passionate about, and been doing, and I had so much confidence in a certain area, like that I could. But here I go to Nashville, and it's a dime a dozen. It's not about your talent. The talent just gets you a seat at the table almost. And because that was the case, like I think time and time again, I would have these conversations with songwriters, and it was so clear to me what it boiled down to was not whether they're talented or not, but those who followed through. Really, it's what it was. If you do it for long enough and you don't give up. And but I was asking the question of whether I was talented or not. That's what I was wanting to answer. And it was just a cycle. And so, and it wasn't. It's not about that. It's about doing it, getting in a habit of it, and doing it every day, and getting it in your blood, and just being that. And but the debilitating fears was simple, just the fears of not. It comes down to not having control over what other people think of me or think of my music. I mean, I was successful in the arena, in this other arena. So I built up confidence. I mean, I could almost have control over that, but there it was like I lost all of that, and would just my day literally was kind of like wake up, get stressed out about writing a song, try to write a song, get stressed out all the way. Okay, don't write a song. Then my wife comes home, and then get angry about not writing a song. Like that was sort of the cycle.
I can relate to that in so many ways.
Well, I couldn't change the movie in my head. The movie in my head always at the end of it was, either a face of somebody who was disappointed, or the face of someone who just was ignoring or something. That was the movie that I was playing. And I was making it part of my identity, which is kind of a separate thing. But through that, Melissa was studying all these realms of psychology and different subjects, and she came across, I don't know if it was the gift of ADHD, but it was all these stories that have these sort of people that have had success who have ADHD. And so when she handed that book over, she's like, "Hey, take a look at this. This sounds like what you're going through." And when I read it, I felt at home. I was like, "Oh my God."
Were you initially like open to it, or were you like, "What's this?"
Right. For me, I've kind of had a dance with that since then, but initially it was a relief, huge relief, because I wasn't crazy in my head anymore. It was like,
there's
okay,
a reason that you're having these struggles, right? And there's a name for it.
Totally. And turning 30 was a big, huge point for me as well, because it was the first time that it was like a full decade in my 20s to 30s. I had a full decade, and something about that was tangible to me that, if I do everything the way that I've done it for this last 10 years, I'll be exactly where I'm at right now. And am I happy about that? And I didn't have a good answer. I wasn't happy. I had the history of not being able to follow through and feeling insecure about that. And because I feel insecure about that also gets in the way of me following through and having this confidence to follow through.
You mentioned follow through a number of times.
Right.
So much of that I actually wrote it down. Because, follow through for me, that is one of my areas where it's like things can there's like this gravitational pull of stuff that gets like pulled away from me. And that's all those things I need to follow through on. And it's chasing to me is more exciting than following through.
Oh man, that's a really poignant thing that you say. Yeah.
What are some of the things that you actually do to help you with follow throughs? Because it sounds like you recognize that this is a challenge for you, or has been a challenge for you.
Yeah, and it continues to be. So it's not. It's so funny. I think last week my wife and I were talking. She would call that my life's mission.
To follow through.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's your life's work is to, and yeah, and I think in a sense it's really strange. But if we dance around the topic a little bit, but for me, the way it looks like for me, or what follow through that journey for me has been is that like I'm really good at coming up with new ideas of and that process is part of that ADHD characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
It's stimulating. It's like a new world. And when that happens, there's the problem is that there's so much meaning in it for me, that coming up with new ideas and, which is great for songwriting. This is perfect for songwriting. It's like this little controlled area where you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
But when it bleeds over into your life and your life looks like an incomplete song, it's like, this is not, that you're capable of more.
That would be a great song title. My life is like an incomplete song.
Right. No, I see the wheels turning. Yes. I would love to go down that route, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to follow through with this answer. But the thing that, okay, so if I take those 10 years, the things that I was disappointed with most were the things that had potential that I didn't follow through on. And so because I couldn't really see it before that, almost like the accumulation of the 10 years gives it a good sting, like a really good sting. And that pain, it gave me the ability to, because I didn't want that pain anymore, it gave me the ability to see beyond, I don't know, the pain gave me the ability to look at it more clearly and be able to face it. And so, that being the case, like, what are some things that I do now? Honestly, it's conversations with my wife.
Okay. So does that mean that you're probably more of a verbal processor?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally a verbal processor. But even with ADHD Collective, that is something that's a really good example of something that I'm following through on and I feel proud of. But if you looked at the first 6 months, by God, like, we started in 2013, but the first 6 months, I even was in, and then I was out, and I told Melissa, I'm out. I'm not doing that. Like, this year, and because there was too much struggle of like, am I in or am I out? And there was a process of like, okay, and then over the process of doubling down, and then clearly saying like, oh my God, like this is my test. This is my test. Like, will I follow through with?
So what was going on at the 6 month period where you're starting to say that you were out? Or what wasn't going on?
Right. Well, when initially it was Melissa's idea, like Melissa is a therapist specialized in ADHD, and she was seeing that the stigma sort of therapy, that those with ADHD wouldn't come, or they had this stigma with like going to therapy because it was kind of this intense, you only go to therapy when something is wrong with you, that type of feel, even though I don't believe that, or plenty of people don't. And so she just saw that as a barrier for people getting help. And so she was just like, well, we should start this ADHD coaching thing. And I initially just started with just doing all the back end stuff. So like starting a website for her and like getting stuff, getting it all thrown up online.
How long did that take you?
Oh God. That process was a learning. I mean, I was learning all the tools myself. So like, I would like went on TaskRabbit and like started building websites for people to even learn at real cheaply. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So talk about that and talk about what TaskRabbit is, because maybe some people don't know what that is.
We're like big proponents of the shared economy, especially for those with ADHD. But it's like TaskRabbit was a service that's changed over the years, or this last year. But it was a service where you could become quote unquote TaskRabbit, and they sort of this interview process, and you were a worker. And when you were considered a worker, it's like all these people would go on and put their whatever they needed done, they put it up online, whether that was, I need research done on this. I need, I need down to, practical, like I need my living room cleaned, up to, like where it didn't require, it was like online. So people would put up their like website, I need a website. And so I started bidding on these as a TaskRabbit, like a basic website, because I was learning how it was, I was still in the learning process for like Squarespace and stuff. And so I just, like bid on some of these and for like $100 and started fleshing it out to learn the process of how to create a website. And so that started that process.
So was doing that part of like giving you that accountability? Because otherwise you were just kind of doing it on your own and then it's completely like endless.
Well, oddly enough, that became a distraction from actually doing our own website. I mean, that's really...
So it was pseudo productivity.
Yeah, I needed to learn how to do these things, and I was learning process. But yeah, that's the constant thing with the ADHD Collective is that's what it was at the 6 months. It's like, hey, you seem distracted about these all these other little projects that you're doing. How devoted, and are you devoted enough to ADHD Collective? And so that was the 6 month like conversations I would have with Melissa.
And were you getting clients?
Yeah, no, we've always, I can't tell, like, we had some stuff with Psychology Today. So we had a trickle, and there was no expense really to it. And I was working also at at AT&T at the time, and then quit from there like a couple of months later to kind of like go full time with ADHD Collective, and we were getting clients, which was really cool and able to help them.
So what was it that helped you get back in? Because you said you were in and out, and then you went back in.
Yeah, if I dig into it, it was to find my own, like I didn't really know my place in it. And when I don't feel that meaning, or it's not quickly accessible, or I can't access like a vision of what it is to me, it just is Melissa's, it's just it's not mine. And so that's kind of how I was treating it. And so the conversations would come up with Melissa of like doubling down and like, hey, let's put both feet. I need you, basically. Like, will you put both feet in? And I'm like, but what's my place? But what's my,
what's my why? Yes.
I needed it.
Absolutely.
And, right. And I, initially, she would bring me in for helping someone with career stuff. And I would be able to help with like, hey, with shared economy type stuff, and people that were in transition, I could really speak to that because I'd been through it. And so was able to help people through that.
So you found it easiest for you to help people the most when you were able to relate to their experience.
Yes, that would be accurate. Yes. Nice pull in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It totally did. And then,
and at this point though, you weren't yet sharing with your clients that you had ADHD.
I did.
You did? Okay.
I did. Yeah.
So you're sharing with your clients, when you were working with them.
Yeah. Yes.
But as far as like putting stuff like out, in the
stratosphere, the online stratosphere. Yeah. That's more difficult. That was more, I don't know. Cause in a sense, in that small environment where it's just a relationship between you and a client, I was assessing that it was like, there was not too many, I could still kind of control that inside.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was okay there,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but to then throw it up online or something like that, where I don't have much less control,
Are you
that
familiar
was
with the work of Brene Brown?
yeah, she brings up a lot, like with shame.
Well, one of the things that she talks about is that people have to earn their right to hear your most vulnerable stories. It's to not everyone.
That's really good.
Not everyone gets to know like your most vulnerable stories and the things that are most vulnerable for you. People have to earn that right. And so for me, and I when I first heard that, I was like, I was trying to apply that to what I do here. Right. And I think, if someone's tuning into my podcast, and I think that they've earned that right to hear that. But when I was starting my practice, because I was kind of like you in the sense where I did share with clients that I had ADHD, but if you were to go to my website, you had to really, really dig into some blog post deep in there that hinted at the fact that I had ADHD. It was not like, and I was very unsure about it. And, so it's been a process, and, it's and still to this day, every once in a while, I think should I be sharing as much as I share? Right. But it's like to borrow Brene Brown's term again, it's that kind of vulnerability hangover. It's like you're questioning it, but all the feedback that I get, it assures me that I'm doing important work by sharing sharing the stories that I am, because I'm lucky, and I think that you're lucky in the sense that we get to, because our work involves working with people with ADHD, we kind of don't have to hide it. That's my belief. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that disagree, but that's okay. Well,
the thing I actually really like, and I guess in a sense, like what even when you said, hey, when we came upon the rub, when you're like, I think we should have a conversation about this. And I had that reaction of like, no, maybe not, when I looked at your journey, and even listening to the past ADHD Rewired podcasts, it's, I saw the goodness of it, I guess. And that gave me, I don't know, there was something truthy about that, as Stephen Colbert would say. there was some truth that rang in that. And a truth that I personally, like what I don't know, what I am guided by too. And I thought, okay, I think this is good. I think I can talk about this. And there's a weird thing where that vulnerability kind of gives others strength, and even kind of gave me strength enough to be comfortable enough to come on here. And yeah, maybe I was talking about it in one-on-ones, but hey, am I okay with, the whole world, or, like the whole audio community, this, I'm okay. I think I'm okay with it. But when you're not doing good, when you're not doing, like when you have the off weeks, is the moments that I feel vulnerable about the times I've been vulnerable.
I hear you. I mean, yeah. And that's, that is part of the thing that I think, that is probably one of the most important things that I want people who are trying to still kind of wrap their head around what is this ADHD thing to really understand, is that the one thing that is truly consistent about ADHD is that it is extraordinarily inconsistent. So it's that the inconsistency is the constant, and it's really hard, I think, especially for people living with or working with people with ADHD, because it's like, oh, you're doing it, like why aren't you doing it now? And it's like, that's part of it. And then and it's frustrating, especially if you're I view myself as a very highly motivated person. Like, I want to succeed. I want to have 1,000 ideas that I want to act on,
implement. Yep.
But sometimes I stare at the wall, and and I don't do anything. I mean, if there was a contest for how long you could stare at a wall for, I'd probably win. Because I can get so stuck sometimes, and it's like that's part of ADHD. And then at the same time, once I get going, it's like, where the hell are my brakes? Like, I can't stop. And it's like, so it's a complex Go ahead.
It's totally complex. I think it is complex. I think one of the things that is like the immediate, it kind of ties in indirectly, but I think it's a powerful piece is that this, we're about like the whole strengths based thing. And I don't know if you've ever done the strengths finder test or assessment where it kind of assesses your strengths based out of like 40 different themes or whatever. And it's something that we advocate at ADHD Collective, but even personally, it's like when you flip your life and let it rest on your strengths as opposed to your weaknesses that you're trying to always get better at, that whole constant sweeping. But when you have some kind of your strengths are shown, it gives you this, it kind of gives you the leg to stand on to be vulnerable. So you're not just in it. So you're not just in your weakness and this washing machine cycle of weakness and, you're being washed up in front of the world, like
right.
Those strengths kind of give you the ability to be.
And as a social worker, that's my background as a social worker. Our profession is taught in the strengths-based perspective. I mean, it's which is different than kind of psychology, which is more kind of the pathological experience of different psychological challenges. Where in social work, we're looking for empowerment, we're looking for strengths, we're looking to understand the system that the person is in. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we ignore the challenges. Because that's just to not acknowledge it and harness the strengths is just as much of a disservice as it is to ignore the challenges. Because you can't ignore challenges and just focus on strengths. So that's not going to get you the progress you want. That might sound good and feel good, temporarily, anyways. But it's to get great at what you're good at and get better at where you're struggling, or figuring out workarounds or different ways to kind of offload those things that are really hard for you. I'm planning ahead, and you can too. This fall's ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Group begins September 14th, 2015. Besides from the benefit of securing your spot, I've set it up so you can start making payments now, and you could spread the cost over 6 months, making it affordable on almost any budget. To take advantage of this 6-month payment option, you do have to sign up by July 31st. Then you could pay over 5 months, then 4 months. The price will go up September 1st. And we already had one person sign up, which is pretty awesome. Many of you were interested in this summer's session, but told me you needed to wait until the fall. If you already know now that you want to join the next session, don't wait. Go now to coachingrewired.com to schedule your free consultation. That's coachingrewired.com, and prepare to get your ADHD rewired.
Audible.trial.com/ADHD rewired for your free download. Trial.com/ADHD rewired. Trial.com/ADHD rewired. Go to audibletrial.com/ADHD rewired for your free audiobook download.
Like even you being vulnerable and showing, sort of the process at, ADHD at 55 miles an hour when you're stressing out about all these things in the speech that you're supposed to, and you even planned on it ahead of time, but then you didn't. If everybody just saw, it's like if everybody just sees you being strong in your podcast and your site and what you got going on, it's so easy to do in our culture today. Like everything is twice removed, where you can schedule everything ahead of time and control how it looks. And so when there's this brawny look of strength, when somebody comes across that, there's no room for the weak parts in themselves. There's no room for it, because, for them to be successful, they have to embody that strength. Like if there's no break in it, there's nowhere where you can see yourself in it. And so that's what I appreciate about what you're doing, is that you're giving peek into the weaknesses as well. And gosh, for those on this side of it, I'll say that that's such a powerful moment because there's room for you. There's room for you because you know your weakness. I know my weaknesses. And when I hear them, man, God, it gives me the strength to say, okay, I can still do it. I can still do a podcast. I can still do this practice, blah, 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 fill in the blank. But that's a powerful thing.
What are those? Let's get vulnerable with each other here.
Oh man, I thought we were. Okay, no. Yeah.
We can even go one for one if you want. So, as far as greatest challenges, the things that you were like that you hope that nobody would, would know, or the fear of if they found this out, they wouldn't want to, they were not going to want to hire me if they knew that, for example, I'm horrible at returning phone calls.
Right. Right. No,
I often will think about the call that I haven't returned and think about it. And then it gives me anxiety. And then it's like, I waited too long. It's like, oh my God, how could I call now? And it's the amount of mental energy I put into it. And what's so funny is when I was doing when I do my coaching group launches, like I'm on the phone having a lot of conversations with people. And it's like, once I'm in the swing of it, I'm like, actually, I don't mind talking on the phone. This is, I can do this. This is not so bad. And then it's like you get out of that daily, regular habit of it. And then it's like, I hate the phone. Blah, 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 blah. It's like
oh, totally. Yeah. No, I have the same. I'll say the same on my end is doing intake phone calls or consultation phone calls. So like that initial, once you get in the habit of it, it's easy. It's easy. I love habits and the flow that they produce. But to get that initial ball rolling is really difficult. But then another vulnerable piece is like, okay, if I have an off day, like Mad Men is really, really awesome all day. And then if that's my bad day, is like, oh my God, if everybody knew that I just spent all day watching 8 episodes of Mad Men. God.
Okay, I'll share a similar one that I'm not even sure if I've really shared on this show before. So I have there is something that I spend way too much time doing, and like every moment that I'm doing it, I'm like, why am I spending time doing this? I'm sure you've heard of the game Minecraft. I am such a Minecraft nerd, and I've gone in phases. I mean, there's times where I've actually left my iPad at my office just so I won't play it at home.
Right.
Because it's like, I mean, it's absurd because I'm recognizing that I'm actually not enjoying doing it. And yet I'm doing it. It's like, oh my God. It's like the willpower is just broken there, and it's like, and then damn it, they did this update where, so I only do creative mode. So if you know Minecraft, it's creative and survival mode. I only do creative mode, and I've been building this really intricate world for over probably a year and a half. And I got into Minecraft as a clinician because I wanted to understand, because all my clients were playing this game. And I'm like, okay, I got to understand this. And I knew I was in trouble because the first time that I downloaded, it was 9 p.m. on a Friday night. Next thing I know, I look at the clock, it's 3 a.m. And I was like, oh no, I haven't done that since college. I lost. I mean, sure, I'll occasionally lose track of 30 minutes. But that was, it was like something in my brain changed. I mean, it was. Well, so they did this update where, so one of the things I like is that you have this, a limited space to build.
Right.
And now they created an update where it's endless space. Damn them.
Right. Well, can I argue with this and say, because, okay, so the theme that I hear is okay, I just binged on, X amount of hours watching Mad Men. You binged on X amount of hours for Minecraft, right? But in a sense, it's the weird thing is that I get a lot of meaning out of Mad Men. Or fill in the show, whether it's Breaking Bad or Mad Men or Better Call Saul, which is amazing. I just finished that recently, or whatever. These things, where all these complexity and nuance can flex in a way that's fun and entertaining. But I'm drinking it in, and I am almost empathetically increasing my knowledge. That's how I see it. I'm learning. And I wonder, I wonder if there's something that is there with Minecraft that is there. It's hard because it's a waste of time, but maybe for you that it's doing something for you. Or
sure. I mean, it's and I enjoy it. It's a creative process that it's just like, oh, look that I've built. I can kind of organize ideas, but it's like
it is a waste of time.
Right? Yeah. The thing that frustrates me about it is I'll say, okay, I'm going to play for half an hour, and then it's break failure. It's like
in my world, it's just one show. It's just one episode.
That word "just," that's a.
And maybe I think that Minecraft is good, and I think that Mad Men is good. And I think maybe the way to judge those kinds of things is all in the context of at the expense of what.
Well, right.
It's like so like saying, okay, Minecraft, or what were you supposed to get? What did you want to get?
And it's a great example of, do what I say, not what I do. It's like, don't look at screens before bed. What? All right. Full openness on this. What am I doing in bed? I'm playing Minecraft.
Right.
I know that looking at those lights are decreasing the production of melatonin. Like I'm fully aware of it.
And maybe I've grown over the years where maybe this is something that is really good or contributes to this. Is that like now if I have an off day and I just watched X amount of hours of Mad Men and I get done, I think before that would have thrown me under the bus and I would feel bad about myself for a couple of days, almost so I could feel good again, like that whole cycle. And that is getting less and less. That's my measure. It's like, how fast can I get back into feeling good about myself? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah. And I've gone and there was a period of several months where I just didn't even play anymore. I was like, finally I'm bored of it, and then I went back to it. In fact, last year I was seeing a therapist for a while. And, so
I love that.
Yeah. I was seeing a therapist, and here's a crazy thing about therapy. I think that when we think about going to see this therapist that's supposed to help us with all these things, and yet we have this certain thing that we don't want to share with our therapist.
Right.
So I had so many sessions where I was thinking, man, I just want to give her my iPad and just ask her, just delete this program for me, please. And I didn't do it.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, wow. What is good? It's like a drug. I mean, it's
yeah.
So, but one of the things
that you felt bad about, you felt bad about it. That shame was big enough that it kept you from. I think that's such a big part of maybe the vulnerability. Like it's kind of a double-edged thing, or it's really hard to navigate because almost like to be vulnerable sometimes to someone who has ADHD is to think you're going to take me down to that area that is just red hot with shame. And I don't want to stay down there. I don't want to be down there. But where is the balance of, because being vulnerable, going down to the red hot shame is not being vulnerable. That's just us being victim, maybe, or something along those terms. And it's like maybe it goes down too far, and it's not. How do you be vulnerable in a way that's life-giving, as opposed to just going into your crap,
Because I'm also a musician, and there are other creative things that I like to do that, because I value actually creating where there's something that right. But I also get, and Brene Brown talks about this too, is that this value of play and how she defines play as it's in a sense purposeless. Like it's not for a desired outcome. You're doing it just to do it. And so in a sense, right. I guess I'm playing, so it's, yeah, I go on both sides of it. It's the frustration piece of it for me is that I play more than I want to. And that
that's the thing. It's in competition with something that you really want to.
And then now that I'm thinking about it, what it probably really is, I have this awesome display of a reminder of how often I play, that I'm not stopping when I want to. It's, I know that there's always I don't get into the whole looking at people play on YouTube. I know I have a lot of my clients that do. They watch. It's amazing how there are these people who have millions of views of themselves playing Minecraft, like, and it's really popular. I don't get, but I was thinking, man, if I like did like a tour of the world that I've created, like I would almost be ashamed that people would say how awesome it is. Like,
yeah. Well, I'm going to tip into the shame a little bit more. Is that okay? Like,
yeah, please do.
So
please do.
Where does the shame come from? And I could speak to myself of like, it's weird. I kind of always grown up with this feeling that I was bad. I was either doing something bad it was a really big struggle when I was a kid. And I think my ADHD-ness totally factors into this because it made ADHD as a kid in the schooling system makes everything confusing to kids who have it. It's such a mixed bag because, or at least for me, like I couldn't shut up. There was something that needed to be done, and that was talk to my neighbor and socialize. It was so important to me. I was blind to everything else. So I'd get in trouble constantly. And, my mom would say, like, my mom would get a phone call from every single one of my teachers within the first week of school, from every single one from first to fifth grade. But I wasn't bad. The whole thing was that, like, here I was, and I was being lumped in school. I was getting my name on the board, getting checks next to the name. I had notes to home. So there's this I am lumped in with the bad kids, but they're not for being bad. It's just for being, like I wasn't bad. So here with that, how do I hold that as a kid? I mean, that's where I see it starting for me. It was like just being completely confused at why I was in trouble. Was I bad? Like it started this question in me that I didn't have an answer for. School would say that I was bad, but then, my mom would say that I was good. I don't know. Like, how does this measure? And I think part of that, the shame aspect, I think maybe it kind of, maybe that experience as a kid and that confusion is kind of a hotbed for shame later on, or just, just feeling this sort of nebulous feeling of badness. And for me, I know that's where it came from, and or at least part of it. And maybe I have it. Can I share a specific story? Maybe,
please.
Yeah, like I was thinking.
No, you can't actually.
Oh, right. No. in tandem with that confusion, I remember there's one specific moment I remember with my mother, and my mom and I had this. We talk on the phone a lot, or can, and maybe 2.5 years ago we got on the phone call, and I was trying to explain something to her, of something I was going through or something like that. And it came all rushing back to me. And I was like, oh my God, Mom, it's like this. And I began spewing out this memory that I remembered so intensely involved her. So I was a kid. I was like 8 years old. And I remember my mom was going to go to the store, and she told me before she left, like, you need to clean your room and do my chores. And, before I get back, or you're going to get in trouble, and, you need a spanking or something. And I was the king of spankings when I was a kid, but and they weren't bad. We grew up in a good home. It sounds so horrible to talk about now, with the way that people, but it wasn't like, yeah, anyway, so I was going to get spanked if I didn't, do my chores before she came home. So she came home, and I totally forgot to do any of those things. Mm-hmm. Like I went into my room and saw a Lego, and then everything was done. Yep. So she comes home, and she sends me to her room, because I have to think about what I did bad, and she comes in, and I'm going to get a spanking. And for the first time in my like little kid world, I like stand up for myself, because I'm thinking, and I'm like, I forgot about, I don't think my mom knows this, is what I was thinking. I don't think my mom knows this, but I didn't choose to do that. To be bad. I didn't choose to not, I didn't choose to, hey, I'm not going to do this. I just completely forgot. And when she came,
you weren't doing it because I just don't want to do it. And
right. And so I was like, it was almost, as a little kid, that was a big, huge epiphany for me, that like, oh my God, I didn't control this. Oh, I need to tell my mom this, because then once she'll understand, then I won't get in trouble for this. And so I remember she came in, and it was like the pre-talk, like, do you know why you did, like that. And I stopped, and I said, Mom, I don't really understand that I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get a spanking for, I can't control that. How am I getting a spanking if I forgot? Like, and she had trouble with that. And I remember, I didn't know that at the time. I knew this afterwards. She didn't, she's like, well, you know what, if you valued it enough, you would have remembered. And I just even stopped and I dug my heels in, and I wasn't the type of kid to do this. And it was like me for the first time having self-efficacy, like almost like standing up for myself.
Self-determination.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And like being like, no, like this is not. And so I stand up and, I was yelling and I was crying and I was like, you know, this isn't fair, you know? And I still got a spanking. And oddly enough, two and a half year old.
What triggered this memory when you're talking to your mom?
Oh, honestly, I was trying to explain to my mom, I think at the time, is like I was trying to explain to my mother a time in my early 20s. I moved to the East Coast. It was like my dark years, my quote unquote dark years. And with I was struggling with my spirituality. I was like, you know, all the hard questions I was kind of asking them. And so I was describing, my mom and I had that conversation. She wants to know that, like, what was that really about? And oddly enough, like the problems that I was having in those early 20s was the same problem that I was having when I was 8. And it was this, it was, you know what, if here I am and I can't control whether I'm going to forget or not, and I'm going to get punished for something that I can't control, just sit with that for a while. Like that's the thing that was like, that was almost devastating to me as a kid. Is it like, here I'm not going to know when, but I can't control this, but I will be held, like I will get the repercussions of this. So it's like this nebulous, like kind of the sky's always going to fall on you type feeling. And that was what I was struggling with when I was 20. And I don't doubt I was making my mom and I had a snot fest. She didn't know that she caused all this sort of pent up feelings. And my mom felt sorrowful for punishing me back then after she knew. And it was really this kind of source of healing, which was really great. But the weird thing is that, okay, I wonder if I was 8 years old and just that crushing feeling of like not knowing when the foot is, when everything's going to be toppling down that you don't have control over, and you don't know when it's going to happen. Is it like every big moment in my life was, I defined it that way. That was the weird thing. It's like, wow, no, of course I was having the same. It was almost like when I was in my early 20s, I was trying to answer that same question from when I was 8 years old. And it was a healing moment for my mom and I, just because she could hear me and actually apologize for that and tell me that she was wrong. That was like I could almost, really, in a sense,
for you.
Oh my God. I didn't know it. I actually didn't know that I was wanting her apology. And the moment that she said it, it was a weird thing. It was like, wow, I didn't know that I wanted you to say you were sorry, but I'm sure glad that you said it. And it was kind of this healing moment it's too close to it now, but like that healing is an important part of that process of growing. And so, so, but a
lot of what you said. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
I found myself very much being really with you in that. I was even really feeling that myself, that pain of, not knowing why you're getting in trouble, and, not doing these things on purpose, and yet getting in trouble for it, and not understanding that. I mean, it's the way you put it too. I just, if there's parents listening to this, if you're trying to figure out information for your kids,
right?
Try to sit with that idea. Imagine what it would be like to not be able to remember the things that from a social perspective we know we're supposed to remember, but actually to not be able to do it, to want to do it, and to not actually be able to do it.
And they get punished for it.
Yeah. And I, one of the things too that when, especially with kids, and I think this is kind of true with adults too, when you are getting punished, in trouble, penalized for things that we can't really control, what we end up doing is controlling how we respond. And so what that tends to look like in kids is oppositional defiant disorder.
That's interesting.
Because it's like, I can't control that I forgot to make my, clean my room, but I can say,
can't control.
Well, make me, it's like, and now we got an argument going, and now your brain's stimulated, which is what your brain needs anyways. So arguing with, someone with ADHD is kind of like giving them a toxic dose of Adderall in a sense, because it's stimulating the brain, but it's tarnishing the relationship and all other kind of negative effects of that. You'd also hit on something, Adam, that, speaking of vulnerability, this we talk about fears.
Right. I
frequently have the fear that everything that I've built, from my business to my family, that I'm one step away of it all coming crumbling down.
Yeah.
It's a completely irrational fear based on no evidence, but it's like this fear of, and I think it stems from, what did I forget to do? What did what am I missing? What detail did I overlook? What has escaped me? And when am I going to learn about the consequences?
Right.
So, and I think it's a common one. It's even though I may appear to have all my stuff together, these are still things that go through my own head. And I, to the best that I can, I acknowledge the thought that I'm having it. I acknowledge what it is. I don't try to over amplify it. But I think it really is based on a lot of what you were describing, that we don't, growing up with not knowing why we're getting in trouble for these things. That's why I always say, don't ask someone with ADHD is like, why'd you do that? Because usually the honest answer is, I don't know.
Right.
And how often as parents or, where it's like, well, what do you mean you don't know? And then they, kids get the message that, well, then there must be some answer. So now we get into the lying.
Right.
And then you get in trouble for lying. And it's like, it's a lose-lose.
Who was it? My mother in that situation asked years later, like, okay, what would have been better in that situation, after our, and it was almost like she closed me out of the process. But into a process that I couldn't even control or be a part of. And if she had opened it up and invited me in and we had a dialogue about that, how meaningful that would be to my 8-year-old self of sort of exploring that. And my mom also just said, like, she didn't have an answer for me. She didn't know and she thought she was just doing the right thing and blah, blah, blah. And she was caught off guard by it too, because I'd never done that. And so it was just this, cocktail of like a bad situation. But if there are any parents, I know my mom and I have talked about this, if there are any parents listening, like inviting children into that process, into a dialogue, and to understand more about themselves and about themselves in this situation, man, that's a big, that meaning attaches them really easily.
There's an amazing book by Dr. Ross Greene called The Explosive Child, that outlines what's called the collaborative problem solving process. And it invites kids into this process and really begins with, he refers to it as the empathy step. And it's really trying to understand what the problem is. Because often as adults, what he describes is that, we identify what the problem is and try to come up with the solution for the problem. But the problem is we haven't even correctly identified the problem. So no wonder why the solutions don't work.
Right.
So and I think he could probably put a different title on the name of that book and use it for all kinds of things, because it's a process I think is good for negotiating in any relationship. So it's outlining good communication. And what we want to really teach is those metacognitive strategies. Are we thinking about how we're thinking? Are we understanding what we're doing, how we're doing, why we're doing it, and is it working for us? And if it's not working for us, well, let's adjust, let's adapt. And I think that's a really important piece to know, that it's okay to fail, but we got to learn from those lessons. To quote Zig Ziglar, failure is an event, not a person. And I really like
that's
that.
good. Yeah. Well, I have maybe we can push into this. I have a question to you about
Sure.
even the sort of the when you talk about the meta, like how are we talking about what are the language that we're using to talk about this? But because with ADHD, you have so much of the language of it can be kind of negative, or this kind of an emphasis on it being a disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Though there are things going on biologically that are different, so it's like I have had, I mean, how do you think, in myself, basically what I'm saying is that, like, I have this love-hate relationship with the language of the DSM and the language of ADHD as a disorder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know that Edward Hallowell, Dr. Hallowell's
Mm-hmm.
approach and the strengths base, I really like that. But then Dr. Barkley, it's like he has this understanding of, and he's a little coarse to me, but there's things that he has that are, when he's laying it out in a practical way,
Mm-hmm.
okay, the brain and the executive functioning, what's going on.
He's not sugarcoating it.
He's not. But sometimes he's problematic for me, but I like him. So I'm so appreciative of him.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just being honest with that. But
and I think a lot of people feel that way. And here's the way I kind of look at it.
Yeah. I'm wondering what you think.
So there's a couple of reasons why we have, names that, end in disorder, right?
Right.
One is for insurance purposes.
Right.
Because it has to be, you have to describe it as a problem that is actually a problem in order for it to be taken, seriously. I mean, one of the things that Russell Barkley says, and I think he has a really good point, if we were so busy talking about ADHD as a strength, as a gift, then why the hell are we investing money in research and funding and creating treatments for it? And I think he has a really good point about that. So you have to almost look at part of the name is for a specific audience.
Yep.
And it's for the audience of funders. It's for the audience of insurance companies.
Right.
To really identify this is because, there's not a lot of money in studying strengths, unfortunately. You know what I mean?
I understand that aspect, and I understand the DSM stuff and insurance. You got to have it all down for it to be, repaid for by your insurance and all that stuff. And in a certain way, and I've even found these in myself. It's like I'm glad we have a term because it collects and gathers like-minded people and individuals having this term, and it's a handle. It's a handle, and I wouldn't even say when I got my diagnosis, at 30, it was a very positive experience. So I don't know how in the world that I think later I'm like, wait a minute, what's this language you're throwing around here? But I mean, initially it was a relief. It was a handle for me too, to understand the parts of me that, have had difficulty, and putting language to it helps me. And even helps me think about it, and helps me move it around in language, move it around in my thoughts, having it, having those terms, playing around with them and having ideas about them, yada, yada, yada.
Right. And I think the other piece of it too is, okay, so let's say, your mom gave you a name that you didn't like. It's like, well, that's still what people are going to refer to you as, unless you end up changing your name.
Right.
So, just think about it's that, there is a bunch of, stiff scientists that decided this is what we're going to call this name. And you can so think about, I don't like the naming process. Okay, fine. It's still this entity that describes this cluster of symptoms, and the name ADHD is an awful description for what it actually is.
Totally.
Because attention is just a piece of it. And it's not to say that it's an attention deficit is pretty inaccurate, because it's an attention regulation issue.
That's a really good point. Yeah,
because when I'm interested, man, am I focused.
Me too. It's like, how is Minecraft so engrossing for so long? Right.
Exactly. It's like, how was I was able to do that for 6 hours without coming up for air? I mean, it's and that's. And that's part of the issue. It's ADHD is really a disorder of self-regulation. It's regulating goal-directed behavior of those executive functions. Right. Barkley describes those executive functions as and I don't know if you got into this on my interview with him on the podcast, but he describes it as anything that is a goal-oriented behavior that you put out to the world, but then comes back to you. So
Whoa,
otherwise
hold on.
it's not an executive function. So, from a very, very basic one, I have to get dressed. Executive functioning, task initiation, motor movement, sequencing and planning. Very basic executive functions. Okay.
Yeah.
It comes back to you because the actions require you to have clothing on too, right? Right. Your boss gives you a crappy job or says something to you that's kind of rude, right? You also want a promotion. But what happened was that you told your boss how much of a jerk he is, and now instead of getting the corner office, he's showing you the door and asking you not come back. So that's coming back to you. So the ability to self-regulate, to down-regulate those emotions, if it comes back to you, that's where the emotional piece of executive functioning of ADHD is so important too. And that's people often confuse mood disorders with ADHD because of the emotional piece. And just like with you can have people with ADHD who are high energy. You could also have people who are extraordinarily low energy.
Right.
You can have people who are highly emotional. You can have people who have almost more blunted emotion and aren't emotional enough. And so it's like, it's complex, and yet it's all complex under this umbrella of ADHD.
Right. No, I know, which kind of adds to the confusion of it all.
It does. So, I think that, the rename, and then people sometimes still use ADD, and it's like, well, it's it's like, well, I'm not hyperactive. It's like, I know, and I know it's the most absurd thing that you can have ADHD without the H. It's just like psychologists and scientists like to show how smart they are, so they overcomplicate things. Between you and I, it's not a very smart approach. But let me think that those are the words that we got to use, so we're describing the same thing. Like for what's his name? Eamon, and some of the things that he does, it's like he's using different languages to describe something different, and he might have something that's interesting and he might categorize things differently. But if we're not researching the same thing, how do we know we're talking about the same thing? And that's one of the challenges that I see with his stuff. In addition to some of the brain scan stuff that he does, just is not proven. But he's I think like a lot of professionals who are out there and are very visible, he has some value and stuff that he does offer. Let's talk for a little bit. We're getting towards the end here. This has been a great conversation, by the way. I'm really enjoying
really appreciated
it. I asked you before we hit record, and I always ask my guests this: is there anything that you don't want me to ask about? And you. And first you're like, well, what are you thinking? I said, only you can answer that. And then you were kind of like, well, kind of medication you're kind of uncomfortable with. So then I shared with you, and what I'll share now is that, most people know, a little while back, I was going through some anxiety, and I decreased my dosage of Adderall. I was taking Adderall XR, and I was taking that dosage. I was taking a 60 milligram dosage for quite a long time, doing very well with it. Then I started experiencing some really high anxiety, very physical manifestation of anxiety. And I decided to just cut my dose in half at 30 milligrams. Helped the anxiety, did not help the ADHD. Right. So I was probably 3 or 4 weeks on a 30 milligram dose. And again, the anxiety was definitely helped with that. But what happened was it decreased my time horizon of how I was able to plan. Like I was getting through my day. I wasn't able to think further into the future. And what helped me realize that was when I went back to a 50 milligram. So it was a little bit less than what I was taking. Took a 50 milligram dose. And that first day on, I was like, oh, I'm not thinking like a few days and like a week ahead. And it's like, that was one of the big differences. It was like, I'm thinking more than just what do I have to do right now. So, I wanted to share it with you and everyone else. So now I'm on a cocktail. I've added to the mix of medication, guanfacine, and Tuniv.
What is that?
It's a non-stimulant. And, I'm seeing a new psychiatrist, and he wants to really try, before he starts managing other symptoms, he wants to try to get a better manage of the ADHD. And so I'm starting on a 1 milligram dose right now. I'm going to increase to 2 and then 3. And so I'm going to, I'll update everyone as that goes. And so far, I may not notice much of a difference, but I had noticed less anxiety, which is definitely good, because I seem to have tracked it around 2 p.m. I think is when the XR starts coming out, and I think that's part of, as I'm coming down I think it was making me anxious.
Yeah.
And I do think since, and it's only been the first week, but I think since I've started the Intune of that, I've noticed more of a smoothness to a certain degree. But so it'll be interesting to see, because I've always been kind of like scared to like not touch good enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I do. I think that for me, like I'm on medication too. So it's Adderall. I'm on Adderall. And I think part of why that was coming up is like, there is that piece that feels, it's really strange because when I go to fill out my prescription, I feel like they're judging me. And I feel like, hey, this guy, he probably is selling this. He's probably doing all these things.
I've definitely experienced that.
Yeah, that's part of the piece that feels like, or there's that involved, and so you just feel like you're doing something bad, and also like it's also like, because for me the same you described it one time as like putting glasses on your brain. It's the same experience that I've had with medication as well. And so it's like, once you get used to that, and there's varying degrees, like you get used to the medication a little bit in some senses, your body does. And for me, it's been so helpful for me. And then almost to the point where like, I'm scared not to take it.
Me too.
Yeah. And so that piece of me that feels scared, I don't want to admit that.
Hey, Adam.
Yeah,
you just did.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like, that's where it comes from. It's like, that fear of like, I wonder if I would be as fill in the blank if I, didn't have this,
I've had like these crazy thoughts of, what if I were to like get like somehow like lost and go to China, and then I can't get the medication, and then I forgot that I had it on me, and then I get like locked up in jail because you can't have the medication there. And it's like the only way for me to actually organize myself to get myself out of jail would require me to actually have the medication so I can organize myself to.
Right.
And it's like, it really is. It really feels like they're my crutches, and I can't get around without it. And what's wrong with crutches? If you have a broken leg, crutches are great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I guess you know what, that part, and I'm still working this through and piecing this through. But like, if you don't want to admit that you have a broken leg, then you have and I think there's parts of me that like, there are parts of me to cope. It's like there's parts of me that cope endlessly for this, and one of those pieces, is like, I just approach my ADHD from the strengths perspective, and can often leave the negative things out, and that doesn't work. That doesn't encompass. That doesn't get underneath it all.
Because it's like, my strengths perspective to me is having conversations, is being creative, is talking in front of people, seeing the big picture, kind of easily being able to connect loosely related patterns and see how they fit together.
Totally.
Like, I do that like automatically. Like, my brain does that. Now sit me down with a profit loss sheet, and I'm just like, oh my God, are we done yet? We haven't started, but are we done yet? It's like, and to me, it's just like, that's my red zone stuff. And it's like, but I need to know how to do that. I need to, even though I delegate most of that, I still need to know how it works and understand it, and if I want to be a business owner, that's part of what I need to be able to do is learn how to cope with some of those red zone, the essential. I can't completely delegate all of it and not ever touch it, because then that's burying your head in the sand just as much as it is not dealing with it.
Right.
So it's, and some of those lessons I'm continuing to learn and and it's tough. It's like, I was having a conversation with someone, recently about, I'm working on and growing my leadership skills, and I really value the essence of being a good leader. And I was struggling with some of the things, because some of the qualities of good leadership are areas that I have struggled with, and it's like, am I setting myself up to be in this like position of like, I have these high hopes to be this great leader, and yet I don't always like follow up with communication on things right away, or I'm not always as clear as I maybe thought I was, or so it's like, then I get into this kind of the cycle of self-doubt, and it's like,
Right.
so, I have no idea where I was going with that, Adam.
All I know is automation is good.
Yes, automation
externalizing the executive function is the goal here. Like setting up as much as those as possible so that you can, when you're in those positions, like maintain them.
So, I'm just looking at some of my notes, and I think this has been an awesome conversation because, this topic of vulnerability is something that, is very near and dear to me, especially as I've been studying the work of Brene Brown. And actually, in fact, that very, very soon, I am going to be launching this is, I guess, I'm now trying to remember if I ever mentioned this on the show. I may have. I don't even remember. And anyways, I'm looking at my recording. I'm an hour and 17 minutes in, so yes. I'm not sure who's still listening. So, man, I'm going off on tangents here. Okay, focus, Eric. Okay.
Talking about Brene Brown, and you're starting.
So I'm working with two coaches, Carolyn D'Argenio and Deshawn, or both are coaches, and we're going to be creating an ADHD Rewired book club using the work of Brene Brown.
Oh, no, that's good. That's got goodness all over it.
Yeah, and so I'm really, really excited about that, because it's like when I first found her work, I'm just like, oh my God, this is like what I do, and this is like
so
put
good.
everything I do.
For anybody listening, go do yourself a favor and go watch all the TED Talks, watch all her own personal stuff, get her book.
Yes. I mean, on Audible, her talk that she gives, the power of vulnerability, it's amazing. It's so good. So here's my thought.
Yep.
We're at the end here.
Yes.
We can't leave without the random question round, but I'm going to take a spin.
Spin it.
This. Yes.
Oh, so man, I forgot about the round.
So I guess I got to set it up. It's time for the random question round. This is the part of the show that has nothing to do with ADHD, which then paradoxically has everything to do with ADHD.
Boom, I'm ready. Go.
All right. You said earlier in the show, and I had responded to you that would be a great song. What you said was, my life is like an incomplete song. Adam, let's write that song, me and you, right now. Are you ready to do this?
I'm ready to do this.
So let's go. Let's trade lines, okay?
Okay, yeah, I'm totally there. Holy crap, we're writing a song right. Okay,
all
go.
Right. Should I grab my guitar?
No, no. This is lyrics.
Okay,
I can't.
All right. So my life is like an incomplete song. It's like I have a great idea, but nothing seems to.
Wait, are you writing right now? This is you?
Yeah.
Oh,
or if I pause, you can finish it if I'm like, eh. So my life is
great. No, so my life is like an incomplete song. So you said what was your next part?
I have no idea. You can retake something. And all right, so my life is like an incomplete song. It's like
my life. I keep going, but the music doesn't come along. There you go, or something like that.
But the music doesn't come along.
Yep.
I have riffs in my head that make sense to me, but when I put it on paper,
okay. If words in your if words that make sense, you write down your words that make sense to you. Let's say the first part again.
I have words in my head, or did I say words, or did I say chords?
You have words in your head
that make sense to me.
Boom, that's your stanza. Okay. But when I write them down on paper,
or when I try to express them,
got you. When I try to express them,
it's like a discord harmony. It's
wow. Okay, there you go. I like that. It's a cacophony.
Okay.
There you go. I don't know how far this goes.
We're gonna keep going.
Geez.
You start the next line.
The next line would be so I'm gonna tie everything up in this chorus right now.
But before I do that,
no, I'm going to tie everything up with this chorus right now. I'm going to shut my mouth and live out loud. There you go. I have no idea. There. Basically, I'm going to do and not talk about it. I don't know how that's got to be the ending. This is torturous. This is
okay. So, start the next verse.
Your brain's really going right now.
Yeah. Next verse. Okay. The melody in my mind, it keeps me up at night.
Oh, nice. Okay. Melody in my mind keeps me up at night. Keeps me up at night. I'm writing this down and everything. Okay. Keep me up at night. The melody in my mind, it keeps me up at night. It's like they're like words to the blind. It's like words to the blind and something for the sight. So it'd be the opposite of the, okay. So, or it would be words to the blind or something for sight. For that, I want to tidy it up and say, like the melody is music. So it's not, those are the words to the blind.
Tell me back the part that I said.
The melody there's a melody in my mind. It keeps me up at night.
And then you said,
they're like words to the blind. They're like words to the blind, or you could take it out of sight. You could like
it's
a piano.
Can I bring it in focus?
Piano keys in flight. Let's just be playful or something. I don't know. Is that bad?
I feel like can I bring it in focus? Will I ever have? Then leave it like blank, so like your brain wants to complete it with the word sight, and then it has like the unfinishedness to it.
Oh my God, that's perfect. Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, but to put this all in a poetic way is really difficult to do. So there's a melody in my mind. It keeps me up at night. They're like words to the blind, and so you want to go the route of sight, but not say sight, right? Okay, wait.
Or I so badly want to like add a line to my line, but I don't want to overshadow your line.
Oh, you go to yours.
So read me back the line again.
The melody in my mind that keeps me up at night. That's what you got.
I wish you could connect with what I'm hearing in my head.
Yep.
Although you might be exhausted and want to go to bed.
I like it. All right, I got it. Wish I could connect. What's going on in my head? I like that. No, that's good. In my head, though you'd much rather go to bed.
You might be exhausted and want to go to bed.
Like you'd be exhausted.
But if you're anything like me, there's always one more thing
to do.
Okay, keep going.
But if you're anything like me, there's only one thing. If you're anything like me, there's only one thing left to do. And that's, oh God, it's going to be, there's only one thing left to do. You see that shiny idea over there? That one is for, I don't know. It's what, oh crap. I have these tight bows, these nice tight bows that I can't, they're just horrible, that are perfect for on the spot and horrible for real life.
See that shiny thing right there? I think it's looking at you.
Exactly. There you go. Boom. That's perfect. And that leaves us on the whole thing of like, we have a tendency to run away with the shiny idea and therefore our life could be an incomplete song.
And then it seems like it would make sense to have a 37-minute instrumental outro.
I'm just I don't know if there's anybody else hanging with this at the moment. If you are, I'm just kind of astounded that you actually stuck with this and we kind of half wrote something there. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So now,
all right, so that's the round. That was your interpretation of the round. All right.
Yeah, it was random. I went with it. And so what I'm going to so let's hear how that actually all sounds edited together. My life is like an incomplete song.
I keep going, but the music doesn't come along.
I have riffs in my head that make sense to me,
But when I try to express them,
It's like a discord harmony.
it's a cacophony. So I'm going to tie everything up in this chorus right now. I'm going to shut my mouth and live out loud.
The melody in my mind, it keeps me up at night.
They're like words to the blind. Take it out of sight. Piano keys in flight.
I wish you could connect with what I'm hearing in my head, although you might be exhausted and want to go to bed. But if you're anything like me, there's always one more thing
to do. You see that shiny idea over there?
I think it's looking at you. All right. So.
Okay. It's been a blast.
This has been awesome. I feel like this is one of the, this will be one of the longer episodes, but I think it's all value packed. I definitely know that there's been episodes that have been, you get kind of fluffy and rambly, towards the end.
Right.
But this has been great. Adam, I'm so happy that you came on the show, and this was a lot of fun.
I know. I very much appreciate it. So thank you for having me.
It's been my pleasure. And I also appreciate that, being that we've been doing this on video, I'm good to know that someone's face gets as red as mine does when I get embarrassed.
Mine's red normally, but I definitely got heated.
Because I know that my face does that like big time. So it's how vulnerable can we be? So, Adam, do me a favor. Let people know if there's any last kind of thoughts you have, and let people know where they can reach you.
Yes. You can, my wife and I, you can reach our website. It's ADHDcollective.com. I got a couple of side projects. So my podcast is mullercast.com, and that's MULLER. cast.com. And then there's another site that I have that I sort of accumulate and collect the best stories and interviews that I've experienced on podcasts. I sort of collect them all in one place, and that's called For the Benefit of Us. And that's the URL, which is forthebenefitof.us. So
are those interviews that you've been on other people's podcasts?
No, that's just collection of, I'm a podcast junkie, so you're one of X amount that I've subscribed to. And so I just love when I come across the gems of stories, or a lot of The Moth, a lot of Snap Judgment.
Have you ever listened to Risk?
I haven't listened to Risk.
It's my new favorite.
Is it a story-based podcast?
Yes, and it's the whole premise is it's stories that no one would dare to tell on stage.
Oh wow!
And people telling it on stage. I mean,
does it get the content? Does it get does it go south, or is it parental?
You do not want to listen with kids.
Okay, I was just wondering what time. Okay, so they definitely do that. Okay, Risk. I like that.
Yes. Oh, it's great. It's great.
So you hear a story that you totally love and it resonates with you. So I do too, and I'll throw that on. I collect as many that resonate and put them all together for benefit of us, or for the benefit of us.
Awesome. Adam, this has been a lot of fun.
It has.
Thank you for spending the time with me here. And
absolutely,
we will find you at the places that you just shared with us, and all those links will be in the show notes.
Cool, man.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of ADHD Rewired. And if you're new to the show, welcome to ADHD Rewired. We are more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. You can see a full outline of this and all other episodes with all the links and other resources mentioned during this interview at ADHDrewired.com. Help support this podcast by checking out my sponsors. I use Zoom video conferencing nearly every day, and so can you. Go free or go pro. But please, go to erictivers.com/Zoom so they know that I sent you. And you can get a free audiobook from Audible at erictivers.com/Audible. And next time you shop Amazon, use the Amazon search portal at ADHDrewired.com. A small percentage of your purchase will go to support this show, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. You can also support this podcast by leaving an honest rating and review in iTunes or Stitcher. This really helps other people find this show. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't just be a passive listener, be an active member of the ADHD Rewired community. We are on Facebook. You can like our page, but please submit your request to join our free and growing community. And don't forget to check your other inbox because I screen everybody before they come into our community. Looking for a coach? If you're still listening at this point and you answered yes, come to my website at ADHDrewired.com and schedule your free 20-minute consultation, or call me at 224-993-9450. Is your school, business, or organization hiring speakers? I provide fun and engaging presentations full of practical solutions that both educate and entertain. Hire me for your next professional development day or corporate training event. Go to ADHDrewired.com/talks. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.